Afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Go on doing.
Not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, just about keeping my head above water at the moment, but what's new? I think we're nearly there. I've not had many apologies from people, so hopefully we'll expect a few more. So I'll give it a few minutes.
Are any of you also involved in other papers?
Yes, quite a few.
Also leading those? Or?
No, this is the only one I'm leading, but I'm part of the modeling, data, interventions and policy papers as well as co-authors. But I think Chris does a lot of this. Yeah, I think most of those are getting close as well. And yeah, not leading them is definitely a less intensive task at this stage. So I can't take credit for any of those particularly.
So on that, Ben, can either you or Lorenzo have a look at the data paper? Basically, so in the interventions paper, Hans has left a comment and he says this might be interesting to look at, but it's probably better covered in the data paper. So would you be able to see if it's been covered? If not,
sure.
I can add something to the interventions. It's just he suggested it would be better there, but I've no idea what's actually covered in that paper.
Yeah, I couldn't make the data paper meeting this morning, but yeah,
I did, if it's helpful.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
But I have not seen what Hans' comments refers to, because I'm just going through your new version, which is clean without comments, and has probably taken into account Hans' comments already.
Oh, it's not in this paper, Lorenzo. It's in Miriam's paper.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't gone through that either because I'm failing on too many levels to actually being able to follow stuff.
That's why I thought I'd ask Ben. You know,
I'm not sure you get much more chance out of me.
You named
it makes you feel inadequate.
I can tell you what happened at the data paper, the data meeting this morning.
Yep.
We just went through Hans's comments and other three kind of reviewers in inverted commas, and one of them, obviously, like it's now different people find different things interesting. Hans was like, oh, it's all interesting, but in particular the second part, which was about all the FAIR principles and the data, all the principles with the data rather than the modeling. And someone else who does all the stuff about data was like, oh, the first part was really interesting, and I think you should cut the second part, basically. And so we agreed that we're going to keep everything, basically.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point. It's if somebody's found each bit interesting, then it's more worrying if there's a section that nobody finds interesting. And
yeah. So that's fine. They suggested comments about stuff in the data paper that was missing, like wastewater and behavioral data. I've seen wastewater appears here at the moment, at least mentioned.
Yeah, well, Hans made the same comments to us, so I added a bit in about that.
Yeah, there's not much behavior data here, but I also don't think that we doesn't really need it. And nothing for the rest. It was there was quite a lot of discussion about some stuff that they were asking, the reviewers were talking about in terms of what does the so we know what the models want from the data, but what do data people want from modelers, basically? And that was an open question. And well, it sounded to me like in many cases people with data are like, can you please extract information out of it? And that sounds very much like an estimation problem.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, we talk a bit here about the feedback between the two, but I guess none of us are particularly data collectors ourselves, so we're maybe not the best people to ask about what they.
What about value of information analysis? That would be a very useful thing.
There was basically a whole paper of that in the 2015 series that Danny wrote. So we've avoided, I mean, we mention it here, but we've avoided going into too much detail because I'm not sure there's anything much more we can say compared to
that. It's not new.
Yeah, it's still important and still probably not completely solved, but or at least not widely used by a lot of people. So
Value of information analysis. Do you
Yeah.
think, given what I've said about the data paper, do you think I should mention it there? Look,
it's definitely worth mentioning because it's an issue with the data. We're saying, you know, in the estimation paper that the estimation should feed back into the data, whereas I guess the data paper says, you know, can take the information from the estimation and hopefully use that to develop new experimental designs or collect new types of data that would be useful for the models. But I think it doesn't need a huge amount of work other than just referencing the 2015 paper that
Yep.
talks a lot more detail about that. Hi, TJ.
Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late.
No, it's fine. No,
completely
we're
lost
still.
track of time and I just looked up and I was like, it's past 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we're still waiting for a few people. So.
and sorry about the noise. I'm lizarding in the sun at the moment, and my computer is overheating. But and the water, the little waterfall nearby is just making me want to go back home and finding a loo. But I'll survive. I'll roast for a bit longer.
I mean, while we're waiting for maybe some other people, for those of you read the current draft of the paper, do you feel that we're fairly close and ready, or do you think it needs another round of? A few people have said they're happy, but
I think it's reading very well. I scanned it all quickly without really trying to make, you know, I wasn't really looking for anything that stood out, but nothing did stand out.
Okay, well, that's a good sign that nothing's jumping out at you. TJ, I know you read it recently. Was there anything major? I know you highlighted a couple of comments that I hope
I had a
we've
couple
addressed,
of
but
last time I was just sorry, I haven't had a chance to have a quick
no, it's fine. No, there was
quick
nothing.
scan while we're waiting for
Anything.
to
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was reading really well last time.
That's good. We haven't changed anything drastically since then, so hopefully it'll still be.
And it's even not too obvious how many different people had a hand in it. I mean, considering.
Yeah, I mean, Hans did make some comments that,
from so many different backgrounds, it actually is quite coherent, which is quite an achievement. And maybe it's just luck.
Oh, it's a model combination, like person combination, mind combination thing.
Yeah, convergence on the mean, I think they call it.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, Lorenzo.
Ben, I'm gonna I basically reaching the end of section 4. In particular, I spent a bit of time looking at the limits to formal estimation. Is that the kind of sensitivity analysis bit that you've added, right?
So I've added a bit. Apparently, Peter said he's extended that because that was my very rough go just to get something started. But there should be some. Here's Peter now. Good time. There should be some extra stuff being added to that bit.
Okay, so at the moment that bit reads well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to finish reading those challenges, and then I'll stop before I get to expert judgment and I'll just send you what I have at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, expert judgment has been revised. I don't know how many times now by I don't know how many people. So
I can't recognize any part of what I thought was the original version. But it seems pretty good.
Yeah. Peter, you said that you've added or written something about sensitivity analysis as well.
I've added a few words.
Okay.
I'm digging out some references.
That's great. That's not in the main draft at the moment, is it? As far as I can see.
Yeah, I
downloaded it and added.
Draft about 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay, perfect. Great.
Anything so in section 4, Ben, I think there was a couple. I'm still not buying this argument that there is a fundamental difference between models built for prediction and models built for inference. So there's something written in here about the fact that the treatment of uncertainty is inherently different, but I don't think it is. I think it's that it doesn't have to be inherently different. Some people don't incorporate parameter uncertainty or model uncertainty.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing as saying that they're fundamentally different. Like there's lots of people who do fit models who do both inference and prediction and propagate that uncertainty through in different ways. So I'm still not 100% sold that there is a significant difference. I think there can be a difference, but they can also be synonymous.
Yeah.
And it really just depends on how people choose to model it. So, I mean, the point about, you know, prediction models assuming constant parameters it is true, but it is true for some models, but it's not true for all models. And so I think rather than thinking that I think that one of the issues that I have is that the implication in the way that it's written is that prediction models are treated differently. And I don't think that's true. I think some people ignore certain parts of the uncertainty, but I don't think that's because it's a prediction model. Necessarily. I don't see that there's a fundamental difference between a prediction model and an inference model. It's just whether you choose to model this bit of the uncertainty or not. It's still not 100% buying that argument that they're somehow fundamentally different.
Well, I was rather tempted to agree with you, TJ, but I'm thinking about it. I mean, is the difference? I couldn't quickly find the right bit to check the wording, but wasn't the distinction between prediction and explanation rather than estimation? Because that, I mean, you can do quite good prediction with a black box model which doesn't pretend to understand really what's going on. But that's no good for understanding. You really need more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I do sort of buy that, but I also, I mean, yes, you can do good prediction without estimation, but it doesn't mean that prediction models.
Sorry, not estimation, but explanation. It's just, have I got that wrong?
Yeah, it may be that we mean maybe that it means explanation rather than.
I think it was explanation. I'm just trying to do a search of the document.
I was looking on page 12.
I agree with Philip. It should be explanation rather than.
It does say on page 12.
Oh yeah, explanation.
It does say explanation.
But
explanation and description. Yeah, I think I agree. There is a difference. I
think I would be happier if we said there can be a difference rather than there is, because I think there are certain models that do both, and
yeah, for sure.
The implication here is that they're fundamentally different if you do explanation and description over prediction or forecasting. And I think if you fit a model that does both, so if you fit a model that does inference on the parameters and also is predicting, then that's being used for explanation, surely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not it says somewhere that is a significant difference, and I don't agree it's a significant difference. There can be different. I mean, some models which are good for one thing may not be good for the other.
Yeah,
but there can certainly be models which are good for both.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. I just think the language at the moment suggests that they're fundamentally different things.
Okay.
I think they can be, but sometimes they're not. And I think we just need to.
I think the point was to try and encourage people to think more actively about that rather than just building a model and thinking I'm going to do estimation and prediction or explanation and prediction without really considering the fact that when you build a model and it fits well to the data that you have, it doesn't automatically mean that it's going to work well for future data, assuming that the model structure and the parameters and everything are all going to be exactly the same.
So we need to tone it down a little bit.
So but maybe it's just a slight tweak of the language might make that a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you could say that. I mean, you could, instead of say there is a significant difference, there can be a difference between models used for explanation and description. And I don't agree. Actually, the treatment of uncertainty in each case is inherently different. Why should it be different?
Because I think with prediction, you've got to consider other types of uncertainty that aren't necessarily there in.
But again, you can do that in inference. If you do something like history matching, you're using all of the source of uncertainty, which you're then using for your prediction. So, like there are. I mean, I agree with Phil here. I mean, I think it's just a case of language. So I don't think necessarily that it's inherently different, but it's just that like, in fact, the words that you used just a minute ago, Ben, I think would be perfect. It's just about people thinking about the
Yeah,
purpose of
that's
the model,
fine.
and
Yeah.
about the fact that models can be designed for different reasons.
Yeah.
So I mean, Andrew Conlon has a nice, I can't remember but he talked, so we used to do modeling for DEFRA, for example, for certain things. Like there's certain questions that want answering that don't require a full transmission model with prediction, but then there are other questions that do require you to have a dynamic transmission model. So I think the context of how the model is designed is the important point to make there, is that you may choose to design models that are not used for prediction, and that might be different, but sorry, I'm now garbling, but yeah, I think it's just the language. I think the language makes it very black and white, and I think that's not really the point you're trying to make. I think the point you're trying to make is that there, depending on the question that is being asked, there are different types of models, and not all models do both estimation and prediction at the same time. And I think your point about uncertainty is also more key, because that links back to the stuff that Ian and Peter have written earlier on, in the sense that there are lots of modeling approaches that are being used that ignore certain types of uncertainty. But again, I don't think that's because they're prediction models or estimation models that they're ignoring those uncertainties. I think it's just that, most people do ignore those because it's not trivial to deal with them.
Yeah, most people ignore things because it's hard.
Makes life easier. Yeah, I mean, I can go through that and make some changes to the language. I think that's a fair point, definitely. Was there anything else that anyone felt needed clarification? I think you mentioned HPC as well in one of your comments, which needed a bit of clarification, and I've changed a bit of that, but I mean, you mentioned ABC SMC being difficult to parallelize. I didn't completely agree with that relative to other methods that are probably even more difficult to parallelize, I would say. But
I might have meant ABC. I might have meant MCMC, not I mean, so in many ways, like, so I guess my point there with so ABC SMC is quite trivial to parallelize, but the problem is that the amount of, so with ABC SMC, it's the fact that the number of simulations you have to run is unknown. So
and you sometimes might need multiple versions of the model on different cores, and that then memory issues.
So it's difficult when you're doing things like if you're queuing up and you're asking for runtime, or if you're getting charged per CPU hour, if you've got something that with a fixed computational load, then that's
that's fine. But if you're doing something with a stopping rule that you don't know when it's going to
exactly.
finish,
Whereas ABC SMC can go from needing very few simulations to just running away and having almost infinite loops very, very quickly. So
can I just say I don't know what HPC stands for, and the paper doesn't tell me.
High performance computing. So
oh yeah, but it should be spelled out somewhere. If it's going to be there, it should be spelled out.
I'll add that now.
Yeah, it's just a tricky one, that point, because it wasn't quite clear to me what so there are challenges in implementation, but I guess there's also because most of us have access to a HPC, but that's not the same as being able to use it very quickly and for free. And
multi university or multi-group access to HPC is challenging when we've got them at Glasgow, Exeter, or anywhere else, but you don't necessarily have the ability to let collaborators access it or some things.
Maybe the point to make, because this is I have this argument with the research office quite a lot when you're trying to put a grant in and you ask for money for a computer, a high-end desktop to develop your code on, and they say, oh well, we've got this big HPC, you can just use it. And you're trying to make the point that HPCs are useful for certain types of processes. But they certainly are. Like if I was writing a data augmented MCMC algorithm, there's no way I'm going to write that on a HPC, because You need, like, HPCs are designed for these big models where you can do lots of runs independently of everything.
Parallel, yeah.
You've got something which is more like even
Sequential.
ABC SMC is
Mm.
hard to put on a HPC and do it properly. So the fact that it's almost the fact that HPCs exist, people often think, well, you've got all this computing power, but it's not the same as being able to use it properly. So yeah.
I mean, GPUs are becoming more popular as well, but then I think there's a
GPUs
lot
as
of
well. But they're
difficulty
limited,
with
again,
those.
in
Limited,
MS-DOS.
and yeah, and I don't think the expertise is there in running large simulations and MCMC and stuff on those.
This could be said also about the brain of people.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
I know. I was just calling myself in here just straight away.
So yeah, they're all very valid points. So I'll try and extend the HPC bit to make that a bit clearer, and the what was the other section that I said I was going to do? So yeah, I mean, if nobody else has any comments, that's great. The other thing we need to talk about is potential reviewers for the submission. I had an email to all of the lead authors on the papers that apparently the INI found it quite difficult because they've put forward suggested referees, and lots of them have come back from the other papers saying they either have conflict of interest with some of the authors because they've published extensively with them, or they just don't have the time at the moment to commit to reading these fairly long papers. So we need to have a reasonably good number of at least 4 to 6 people that we can suggest as possible reviewers, preferably that none of us have any strong connection with, which may be challenging given the number of people on the paper and the
What is the
expertise in the field.
official journal policy? Some journals have the policy that you can't review anything from an author that you're currently collaborating with.
Yeah.
Or is this journal's policy that it can't be a collaboration last X?
I think it's also down to, I mean, a lot of this has been down to the personal feeling of the reviewer that's been contacted, that they've just felt unable to give a kind of fair and honest review, given that they know several of the authors fairly well.
Is that
it's
there's
a
a lot
small
of people
field.
on this paper, and the field
Yeah.
is relatively small, and so
The other difficulty is
very
we all
quickly
work
run
in
out of people if they're too.
Slightly different areas as well, that people who could probably review the expert judgment section might not be able to do uncertainty quantification, or might not be able to do the more structured estimation section. So we probably want a reasonable selection of people across the different sections of the paper as well, which is why it's non-trivial and something we need to discuss. But I mean, I've had a few suggestions already, which I've put in the Dropbox.
I mean, I can make a couple of suggestions. So
yeah.
I mean, so James Wood at Cambridge, Andrew Conlon at Cambridge, Crystal Donnelly comes to mind.
Yeah.
Because she's been involved in a lot of the INI stuff in the past, but has not explicitly been involved in this paper.
Yeah.
James McCall, he's in Melbourne.
Okay.
We can ask our structured expert judgment thingy experts if they have any suggestions for people.
Yeah, so Victoria's added quite a few already to the Dropbox.
Oh,
I contacted Kat about it, and she hasn't got back to me, but we could follow up with her once she's back. Who are yours as well again? Sorry, TJ. It was Crystal, James,
Crystal Donnelly, James Wood, Andrew Conlon.
Okay.
Deirdre Hollingsworth.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose she's been involved in some of the other papers, I guess, but stuff.
Pete Neal at Lancaster.
Yeah.
Simon Spencer at Warwick.
Yeah. Like it's a fairly good number.
Jacco Wallinga at Leiden University.
What are the journal requirements? We've got to suggest a certain number of.
Yeah, I think it's at least 4, but they've said if we could do up to 6, that would be helpful because of the number that have declined so far. That's come from Cara and Dennis and Valerie. I mean, we've got way more than that on the list already.
Neil Hens.
Yeah. Snap.
Or Michael Holer.
Snap
And
DJ.
maybe completely misspelling these online speed.
Niel
Yeah.
Hens.
Okay. Yeah, I got that right.
Neil Hens.
Um,
The other one I don't know.
Michael Holer's Hohle. I think he's in Stockholm at the moment.
Okay.
But he's
trying
another
to-
statistical epidemiologist, so he knows the inference stuff inside and out.
Was there a link to a online Google sheet for this?
Yeah, it's in the Dropbox.
Oh, it's in
there's
the
a Word-
Dropbox.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a Word doc called suggested reviewers, and I've copied and pasted Victoria's suggestions, and then I think Peter and Glenn have added some during the afternoon.
Well,
We
the
were
other-
struggling. Sorry.
Sorry, Lorenzo. The other one is Rob Dearden in Calgary. So he's done some UQ stuff and a lot of inference stuff, so he might be someone good. Again, I've worked with quite a lot of these people, so they might all turn it down if there's.
Yeah, but that's why it's good. I mean, I'm guessing they don't actually need 6 people to review it, or hopefully they don't. Otherwise, we'll be doing corrections for a long time. But
Any of these names sound also suitable for the data paper? Because we were struggling this morning, and I certainly can't really chip in very easily on the data side of it. And every modeler I can think of is a little bit overwhelmed, where a little bit means a lot.
yeah. Well, that's really helpful. Thanks, everyone. If anyone's got any on there, the list that they think either, they'd really rather not be suggested for whatever reason, or any that they think would be great, then okay, thanks.
Lorenzo, sorry, on the data one, Richard Reeve gave a nice talk to Juniper yesterday about data.
He's a quarter, though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough then.
What do you know?
You would be a perfect reviewer, surely.
Yes, he also wouldn't need to spend much time reading the paper, and he will probably accept it.
You'd hope so. These are great. Thanks, everyone. Might just have to be a random number generator to pick which ones.
The other thing you asked a little while ago, Ben, was to do with author contributions.
Oh, yes.
You need more than the brief thing which is there, which seems to me perfectly fine.
There had been some discussion about a separation between those that had attended meetings regularly and those who'd done more behind the scenes work. But I mean,
Why?
if everyone's happy with just saying the equal contributions, then
Oh yeah, sorry, I haven't added anything to authorship or
yeah. Well, the authorship, I guess all of us here have made
no, I mean sorry,
similar
affiliations,
contributions, but
affiliations, and acknowledgements.
yeah, affiliations I've added. Hopefully everyone's, but if you've got secondary, non-obvious
Yeah. Also acknowledgements.
affiliations,
Yeah.
then yeah,
I
and
need-
acknowledgements. If you've got any grants that you want to acknowledge, please add those as well. But if everyone,
Lorenzo, can you add mine as well when you're doing?
I think I've got yours already, Chris. I think you
Oh,
sent those
the
to-
funding ones.
Oh, the funny ones, yeah. That's
Yeah. Also, I was about to ask you, Chris, whether you can add mine.
fine.
It's okay.
Okay, that's great. I mean, if everyone's fairly happy with that, then I'll maybe shortlist a few names and send them around to everyone, see if people are happy with that. make these last few changes, and then hopefully we can submit fairly soon if everyone's okay with that. And then just look out. I think there's an email automatically comes around to all the co-authors that you have to click on, that you accept recognition that you're a co-author on this paper. And the sooner you do that, the quicker it goes through to the editors then.
When there's nobody who's still peeved about not being on the author list, is there?
No,
We-
not that I know of. I've had a couple of Victoria suggested again, Tony and Will Aspinall, but they both said that they were more than happy in the acknowledgements. So
Good.
yeah, I think the only thing was maybe Danny and Josh, who made contributions at the start. I don't know what people's, I mean, I can reach out to them and see if they want to be. At the moment they're in the acknowledgements, but maybe people
We
feel
could run it past them.
Yeah,
Danny is super busy, so if you
Yeah.
if you ping her a few emails and make it
Yeah.
clear that you, because I think they contributed quite a lot at the beginning, didn't they?
yeah,
And it'd be good for Josh as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
computer is dying out, so I'll do it when I go back home.
That's fine, Lorenzo, thank you. As long as it's done in the next week, then that's great. Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much everyone for joining. I'll be in touch once we've got the next few things done, but I'm guessing this is the last time we hopefully need to meet for a while. Until until we get the next round of reviews back and we have to completely rewrite everything, but yeah, hopefully that won't happen.
And thanks for corralling us all, Ben.
Yes, thanks.
Oh, no problem at all.
Like
It's been
herding
a relatively
cats, isn't
easy,
it? Herding
compared to
acrobats.
some of the
No,
groups I'm involved with, it's relatively easy. So thanks for all your contributions.
No, you've done a fabulous job. Well done.
Group effort.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to see you folks. See you again sometime.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Right.
Cheers.
Right.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye bye.